You think it's the sun that would kill you. That hellish Egyptian blaze. That molten orb hanging over the Nile like the eyeball of some smug god, watching you sweat and bake and blister into oblivion. But the truth is, it's not the sun. It's the sand. The sand that gets into places sand was never meant to go. Your ears, your eyes, your armpits, your food, and most uncomfortably of all, your teeth. You didn't think grit could drive a man insane, but you've never hauled stones in Saqqara. The day begins before the sun rises, which is cruel in and of itself. You don't even get the dignity of light before labor. Just the sound of someone shouting your name in the darkness, a hand slapping your leg, and the familiar jolt of your body reminding you. Yes, your back still hurts. Yes, your legs are still sore. Yes, you are still somehow alive. You sit up on your reed mat. The air is thick with the smells of sweat, mildew, goat, and something sour you stopped trying to identify weeks ago. You slept inside a long, low hut with 30 other men, some of whom snore like drowning crocodiles. One of them has already stood, cracked his neck, and urinated in the corner reserved for such dignities. You envy his optimism. Before you eat, you drink. Not beer, yet just water. Warm, flat, pulled from a clay jar that somehow smells more like the river than the river does. You take a single swig, rinse your mouth, and spit out what feels like a quarter-pound of gravel. Breakfast is barley bread and a handful of dried dates. The bread is dense enough to chip a tooth, but you chew it anyway, because what's one more dental crisis in the kingdom of the dead? Outside, the sky begins to pale. You shuffle out with the others. You are all more or less identical in dress. Linen kilts, sweat-stained tunics, and sandals you made yourself. Everyone has the same cracked lips, the same burned shoulders, the same defeated posture that says, I thought this would be better than farming. The foreman is already shouting. He is always shouting. You've never seen him speak in a normal tone. You suspect he doesn't know how. His voice is like a war drum in human form, deep, relentless, and just slightly off rhythm. He carries a staff not because he needs it, but because it gives him something to bang against your shins. Today's job: haul limestone blocks from the quarry to the base of the pyramid. You and a team of 9 others will be responsible for dragging 2-ton cubes across a stretch of sand and over a system of planks lubricated with water and sweat. Mostly sweat. You take your place at the rope. It is thick and rough and smells like all the other hands that have touched it. Your palms already ache, though the day has barely begun. When the order comes, you pull and keep pulling. You think about everything except what you're doing. That's the only way to survive. You think about the river, about the girl who sold fish by the docks, about whether cats can go to the afterlife, about how many bricks are left, about the gods and whether any of them give a damn. The block moves, not far, a few inches, then a few more. It screeches against the plank like it's protesting the injustice of being built into something eternal. You slip, sand in your mouth again. The taste of it is intimate now, like a companion who always finds you, no matter how far you run. You stand, wipe your face, keep pulling. By midday, the sun is in full judgment. The heat does not feel like heat anymore. It feels like a weight, like another block you have to carry, except this one wraps around your head and shoulders and squeezes. You no longer sweat. That stopped hours ago. Your body is conserving resources, which is a fancy way of saying you are slowly becoming a raisin. You get a short break, 15 minutes in the shade of a makeshift lean-to, if you're lucky. You chew another piece of bread, drink a ladle of beer. It's sour, flat, and slightly gritty, but it dulls the pain in your hands and feet. Someone passes around a dried fig. You get half. It tastes like heaven. It tastes like not sand. The rest of the day is more of the same. Haul, pull, sweat, curse, repeat. By late afternoon, the base of the pyramid looks no different than it did yesterday. You've moved 2 blocks. You're covered in bruises, sunburn, and existential dread. Someone collapses. It happens. A worker just tips over, like a badly stacked jar. The overseer checks if he's breathing. He is. Barely. They drag him to the shade and pour water over his face. He'll be back tomorrow. Or not. The work continues either way. At sundown, you return to camp. You are filthy. Your muscles twitch like dying fish. You wash your face in a basin that hasn't been emptied since yesterday. You don't care. You just want the taste of sand out of your nose. You fail. Dinner is more bread, more beer. Maybe lentils if the gods are in a generous mood. Tonight, they are not. You sit with your coworkers, and no one speaks. Not because you're angry, but because your mouths are too dry. Later, as darkness settles, a scribe arrives to take count. He has a scroll, a sharp reed pen, and a total lack of empathy. He ticks off names like he's counting goats. You raise your hand when he calls yours. That is enough. Before you sleep, you look up at the stars. They are distant and cruel and beautiful. You wonder which one will be yours after this life, if any. You lie down. The mat is thin. The night is hot. Your feet ache. Your teeth ache. Your soul aches. You will do this again tomorrow. And the next day, and the day after that. You wouldn't last a day as a pyramid builder, because you think labor is about strength. It's not. It's about repetition. It's about patience. It's about knowing the sand will win and working anyway, and smiling through the pain, because someone told you once that the gods are watching. You just hope they're watching someone else for a change. They promised you 2 things when you signed up for this job: bread and beer. That was it. No glory, no gold, no cushy afterlife in the field of reeds. Just daily rations, a hut to sleep in, and the chance to haul blocks until your knees gave out, or your spirit did. So now you sit in the shade of a crumbling mud brick wall, chewing on something that might once have been barley bread, if barley bread were made from regret and limestone. It's dense enough to qualify as a building material. You wonder if they make the pyramids from this stuff when they run out of limestone. Beside you, the beer sloshes in a clay jug. You take a gulp. It's warm, gritty, and oddly sour, but it goes down easier than the bread, probably because it has fewer sharp corners. This is your breakfast, every day. Bread, beer, and the looming knowledge that in a few minutes, someone will shout at you to move stones bigger than your ambitions. You've learned not to look at the pyramid, not directly. It's too big, too eternal, like staring at the gods or the taxes. You catch glimpses of it in the corner of your eye, a jagged silhouette against the sun, a monument to someone else's afterlife. But that's not your concern. You won't be buried inside it. You'll be lucky if they bury you at all. Your concern is your toe. Specifically, the one you smashed yesterday when a poorly timed step landed it under a rolling log. Now it's purple, swollen, and has a heartbeat of its own. It throbs like it's trying to escape. You name it Ra because it's the first thing you feel every morning. You limp to the worksite. Today, you're assigned to the ramp crew. That means hauling buckets of mud and limestone chips to fill in the giant ramp that snakes up the side of the pyramid like a very angry worm. You're not sure who invented this system, but you suspect they had a personal vendetta against human knees. By mid-morning, your arms feel like they've been individually cursed by each of the major gods. You've tripped twice, spilled your bucket once, and been yelled at 4 times for moving too slow. The foreman threatens to take away your beer ration. You nod as if this would be a tragedy. In truth, it would be a mercy. A fellow worker offers you a lump of something wrapped in leaves. You accept without asking. It turns out to be lentils. cold, bland, and slightly crunchy from embedded sand. You eat them with the reverence of a pharaoh receiving incense. Lunchtime. You sit with your team in the narrow shade of a stone block, all of you hunched like vultures over your rations. Someone tells a joke about a donkey and a priest. No one laughs. Not because it isn't funny. It's actually quite good, but because your mouths are too tired. You take off your sandal to inspect Ray the toe. It's worse. Definitely infected. Possibly cursed. A labor priest walks by and mutters something about the importance of balance and favor. You wonder if favor includes toenail regrowth. The afternoon brings more hauling, more shouting, more chances to fall face first into a pile of gravel. The sun has moved slightly, but it feels hotter now, as if punishing you for your survival. Late in the day, a block shifts unexpectedly. One of the younger workers panics and lets go of the rope. You and two others take the full weight for half a second. It's long enough to nearly kill you. Your shoulder pops. Your knees scream. You drop the rope, stagger backward, and collapse in the sand. The foreman storms over, staff in hand, murder in his eyes. But he sees your face. He sighs, waves you off. Go sit. That's as close to a sick day as you'll get. At camp, your beer tastes sweeter. Not because it is, but because you lived. The bread still tastes like bricks. The air still smells like armpits and goats. But your mat is there. And tonight, that's enough. You wouldn't last a day as a pyramid builder, because you think hardship has a shape. But here, it's the shape of a swollen toe, of bread that chips your teeth, of a joke no one has the energy to laugh at, and of the pyramid growing taller every day while you just try to stay upright. If you think one block is heavy, wait until you meet its extended family. They come in all sizes. Some are modest, like fat children. Some are giants, great rectangular monsters that laugh at your muscles. But all of them share the same purpose: to ruin your posture, compress your vertebrae, and teach you what it means to groan like your own grandfather. Today you are on brick detail. Not the majestic limestone blocks. They reef prestige haulers with years of back problems and more scars than teeth. No, you're with the brickmen. You carry the smaller stuff. Sun-baked mud bricks that make up the internal structure, the scaffolding, the ramps, the storage sheds, and the inevitable future collapse of your lumber. It starts at the kill, a gaping, smoking pit where bricks are fired like pottery and timbers. You and three others load the finished bricks onto sleds. The sleds groan as if predicting your future. You rope up, heave, and start dragging. It's a short walk, maybe 200 steps, but each step is an argument with gravity. Your thighs shout. Your shoulders tremble. You stop halfway to cough up half the desert. Your partner tells you to spit downwind this time. The delivery site is a scaffolding tower on the north face of the pyramid. You know it well. It leans slightly, like your spirit. A ramp winds up and around it like a snake that's given up on life. You climb. Every brick you carry adds a silent note to the symphony of your collapse. Your back screams, your neck seizes. You consider becoming a scribe or a crocodile. At the top, you deposit the bricks, turn around, and climb down, and do it again and again, until your hands cramp into claws and your legs no longer obey the concept of up. Midday, a man slips on the ramp. His load scatters. Bricks rain down like vengeful gods. One clips you in the shoulder. It hurts, but not as much as what happens next. Your supervisor says, "You're fine. Back up." You're not. Because arguing with management is a fast track to ditch digging. Back up you go. Someone says the vizier is visiting next week. That means the overseers are especially aggressive today. Everything must look smooth, efficient, heroic. You are none of these things. During your last trip, your leg locks mid-step, the kind of pain that doesn't scream, it whispers. A nerve-deep, bone-close ache that says, this is the brick that broke your spine. You fall, not far, just to your knees, but it's enough. A worker next to you helps you up without a word. He knows the look. You've given it before. You finish the shift, because there's no alternative. That night, the healer looks at your back and mutters something about imbalance and onions. He gives you a poultice that smells like death and regret. You apply it. It burns. It works, a little. You sleep on your stomach, because your back is now the property of Are-Ha, Lord of Solar Disc Herniations. You wouldn't last a day as a pyramid builder, because you believe the body is a machine. But here, it's just another tool. Used, bent, replaced. A tool that carries brick after brick until it snaps. And no one even notices the sound. You first meet him at roll call, just after sunrise. He's tall, skeletal, and carries a stylus like it's a weapon. His name is Jaime, though no one dares say it with less than 3 grains of respect. He doesn't yell. He doesn't bark orders. He just watches, records, and occasionally raises a single eyebrow in judgment, so sharp it could cut papyrus. He is the scribe, the accountant of bodies, the registrar of suffering. His job is to track every worker, every hour, every injury, and every excuse. And he does so with a precision that rivals the gods. You're not afraid of the overseer. He's predictable. Shout, wave stick, blame someone. But Jaime notices when you limp on your left foot. Jaime knows when your beer ration goes untouched. Jaime sees the blister on your hand and makes a mark on his scroll that will later become a deduction in your pay or a flag for the temple physician, depending on whether he had breakfast. Today is inspection day, which means before you so much as lift a brick, you strip to the waist and stand in a line like goats before market. Jaime walks down the row slowly, silently, noting everything. Sunburn? Noted. Swollen ankle? Noted. Missing toe? Unfortunate, but noted. When he reaches you, he squints. You've lost weight, he says, as though it's a character flaw. You nod. Eat more. You're no good to the project if you collapse. That is the closest thing to affection you've ever received on site. Once the inspection ends, the work begins. Today, you're restacking bricks in a storage yard that receives shade only from the disappointment of its supervisor. The bricks are hot. The air is hotter. And your hands already rubbed raw start to crack. By mid-morning, your right hand looks like a map of the Nile drawn by a child with anger issues. You wrap it in a scrap of linen, which soaks through almost instantly. At midday, Jaime returns. Without speaking, he lifts your hand, unwraps the linen, and peers at the damage. You'll last another 3 days. An infection, probably. You ask if you can see the healer. Healer's busy. Too many foot rot cases. Try not to bleed on the bricks. He leaves. You continue working. Later that week, Jaime posts the new work schedule. You are reassigned to water hauling duty. A mercy. Carrying jars from the river to the ramp sounds luxurious compared to stone dragging. Until you remember, the jars are heavy, the walk is long, and Jaime still watches. He counts every trip. You try to cheat fill your jar 3/4 full. You shave minutes off your round. Jaime is waiting when you return. Interesting, he says. Either your arms got stronger overnight, or the laws of gravity were amended. You fill the next jar to the brim. By the end of the day, you hate him. Truly hate him. More than the heat. More than the blocks. Even more than the sand. But when the scribe walks past that evening and hands you a fresh linen bandage, you hesitate. He says, I hate waste. That's as close to kindness as this job allows. You wouldn't last a day as a pyramid builder, because you think bureaucracy is just paperwork. But here, it has a face, and it knows how many times you wince before you cry. The scarab beetle is sacred. Everyone knows that. You've seen the amulets, the carvings, the priest who shouted at a boy for squashing one underfoot and made him chant apologies to the dung heap for an hour. But sacred or not, they still fly into your mouth. This morning, while dragging a sled of rubble across the workyard, one of the shiny little gods dives straight into your face. You flinch, you trip. The sled jolts forward and smashes your shin. You curse the beetle. Immediately afterward, you whisper an apology to Ray and offer your next fig ration to any passing scarabs, because you're not risking divine punishment. Not today. The sun rises higher. It burns more aggressively now, as if it's personally offended by your posture. The foreman is in a mood. He shouts at the sky, the sand, the wind, and eventually at you for existing within earshot. You are moved to stone turning. This job involves flipping partly shaped blocks onto their sides so the masons can chisel them properly. It sounds simple. It isn't. These blocks weigh as much as your last 6 bad decisions combined. With every heave, your feet slide. Your sandals are long dead. Just scraps of leather now, tied around your blistered feet like ancient promises. You feel every grain of sand. It's inside your toes, your heel cracks, your very soul. One toe begins to bleed. You name it again, Ra the Toe 2. Break comes in the form of a half-poundful of dates and a jug of warm, faintly sour beer. You sit in what little shade is offered by a crooked fence post. Across from you, a boy no older than 10 naps on a pile of rope. He's already missing a tooth. You think about running away. Maybe north, maybe west, maybe to the river to drown your sorrows like an old tale. But then you remember the scribe. Amy will notice, and the foreman will send men after you, not out of anger, but because your name is still on the list, and bricks don't move themselves. You eat your dates, you sip your beer, you return to the blocks. Afternoon brings another round of beetles. This time they're mating. On your shirt. You don't swat them. You don't move. You simply close your eyes and pretend you are a statue. A sweaty, exhausted, deeply miserable statue. Someone next to you hums a work song. It has no words, just breath and rhythm. You join in, not because it helps, but because it's either sing or scream. That night, back at the barracks, a storyteller visits. A lean man with tattoos across his neck and a voice like linen brushing over gravel. He tells a tale of a man who tricked a scarab god by feeding it honey-covered sand. Everyone laughs, even the overseer. You laugh too. And afterward, when you're lying on your mat, sore in 57 places, you wonder if that's what the Beatles want. Not fear, not worship, just stories. You wouldn't last a day as a pyramid builder, because you think gods are only in temples. But here, they buzz past your ear. They eat your figs. They bleed with you in the dust. And they remind you the sacred lives wherever you suffer long enough to make it mean something. Night on the pyramid is a strange kind of quiet. Not peaceful, not restful, just heavy. As if the stones themselves have absorbed the day's noise and now hum with exhaustion. You lie awake on your reed mat, wrapped in a blanket of sweat and mosquito bites, wondering if sleep is a luxury reserved for priests and cats. The barracks are still. Around you, men snore, mutter, or shift in restless loops. Someone farts. Someone else curses Ray under his breath. And still the moon hangs low, bathing everything in silver and the smell of old mortar. That's when they call for you. It's a night crew job. Emergency patchwork on the eastern ramp. A collapse minor, but inconvenient. They need warm bodies. Yours is deemed warm enough. You rise, feet protesting with every step, and make your way through the maze of canvas and stone. The night air is cooler, but not kind. It carries the fine dust of dislodged blocks, and the scent of river mold clinging to every damp rope. At the ramp, half a dozen men wait. Lanterns cast long, twitching shadows. A bucket of fresh mortar steams like a cauldron of regrets. You're handed a trowel that might also be a murder weapon. Your task? Smear, slap, repeat, find cracks, fill them, smooth surfaces, rebind joints. You work in silence, save for the grunts of others and the occasional hiss of someone burning their fingers on sun-heated stone. Even now, after sunset, the blocks radiate heat like forgotten curses. Time doesn't pass normally at night. It stretches and folds. You could swear you've been here an hour, maybe 3, maybe your entire past life. Someone hands you water. You sip. It tastes like warm clay. A bat swoops by. You flinch. You drop your trowel. It lands in the mortar. No one notices. No one cares. Overseer Teff enters the site. He's dressed for ceremony linen crisp, skin oiled, beard braided, clearly pulled from some priest's banquet. He surveys the work like a man judging grain by taste. His eyes pass over you once, then again. You, he says. You freeze. Did you patch the corner seam near the storage chute? You nod. He squats, presses a finger to the seam, sniffs it, and licks it. Licks it? Too dry, he says. Add more binder. You wonder what went wrong in his upbringing. Midway through your shift, a sandstorm begins to brew on the horizon. A foreman swears. Work speeds up. You read out aloud to stop only to blink through the grit and keep slathering mortar onto groaning stone. By the time the wind hits full force, your eyes sting, your nostrils are packed, and your ears whistle like a desert flute. But the crack in the wall is sealed. Teff nods. The men are dismissed. Except you. You're told to guard the site until sunrise. You ask if this is a joke. It isn't. You sit, back against the newly patched ramp, wrapped in a shawl that might as well be woven from damp parchment. The wind dies. The moon lingers. You look up. The stars are dim. The pyramid is taller. Your hand smells like lime and mildew. You wouldn't last a day as a pyramid builder, because you think night means rest. But here, it means someone else's mistake. And mortar that must hold until eternity, or at least until the next scribe inspects it with a chisel and a curse. If the sun had a voice, it would scream. And it does every morning, just after the first rooster dares to announce the day. You wait to that shriek in your bones. Every joint is a complaint, every muscle a scroll of grievances. Today is wheel duty, which is confusing because wheels aren't supposed to be part of pyramid building. Everyone knows the Egyptians didn't use them for construction. And yet, here they are, giant wooden cylinders strapped to pulley carts, creaking like the gods forgot to oil them. Turns out they're not for hauling blocks, but for hauling people. Important people. Priests, nobles, and visiting scribes too delicate to walk the dusty paths with the likes of you. You'll be pulling a cart that weighs as much as 2 camels and squeaks like an elderly cat. The cart arrives mid-morning, along with the passenger, a temple official in a leopard skin sash, holding a fan made from ostrich feathers and disdain. He does not look at you. He looks above you, as if you are the dust kicked up by his sandals. You grab the ropes. Another worker joins you. Together, you begin to pull. The road is uneven. Every stone is a betrayal. The wheels buckle. The cart groans. The priest sighs every third step as though personally offended by the terrain. You sweat through your linen. Your hands blister anew. You glance at your partner. He's muttering a prayer to Sobek, god of strength, or possibly sarcasm. Halfway up the incline, a whip cracks. You turn. A foreman is watching. He doesn't use the whip, not yet. But the message is clear. Move faster. Be smoother. Don't disgrace the ride. You pull harder. The rope digs into your shoulder. A beetle crawls across your cheek, and you don't have a hand free to flick it away. The priest asks if the wind can be redirected. At the top, you pause to breathe. The cart must be turned around. The priest wishes to inspect the south-facing view. You pivot the cart with agonizing slowness. One wheel jams. You curse softly. The other worker kicks it. It unsticks. You are momentarily grateful for petty violence. Then the cart begins to roll backward. Both of you lunge, brace, shove. The cart halts inches from a ledge. The priest does not notice. He is watching a bird. Later, during the return trip, the rope snaps. You fall flat. The cart jolts. The priest finally looks down. He says, "Replace your rope." You think of 5,000 better responses. You say, "Yes, Holy One." A new rope is fetched. You finish the route. You bow. He steps off, dusts himself, and walks away without thanks. Your partner mutters, "May the jackals nibble his sandals." You both laugh, briefly, then you're reassigned. You spend the rest of the day hauling buckets of water to rinse the priest's path, because apparently his sandals should not touch mortal dust. Your arms shake, your legs wobble. You nearly drop a bucket on a passing cat, which hisses as if invoking a personal curse. You sit in the shade at sunset, drinking the last of your beer ration, your feet pulsing with pain. Someone tells a story about a wheel that turned endlessly in the afterlife, punishing those who misused power. You smile. You wouldn't last a day as a pyramid builder, because you think wheels are for convenience. But here they roll for pride, and every revolution drags your spirit a little closer to the dirt. You wake up coughing sand, not because you reburied alive, though you're beginning to suspect it might be a mercy, but because your straw mat, generously donated by someone's discarded tunic, has fused with the floor of your tent and now functions more like a sieve than bedding. The wind has howled all night. The sand has come inside to introduce itself. It's in your nose, your mouth, between your teeth. You crunch when you chew, and you haven't even started eating yet. The overseer's shadow blocks out the morning sun before your eyes are fully open. He looks down at you like a man inspecting a loose stone in his sandal. He doesn't speak. He never does. He just points. You sigh. You get up. Wherever he points, pain follows. Today's task is archaeological, which is a fancy way of saying, dig up the old workers we forgot about. You and 6 other half-alive, sunburnt skeletons in progress are marched to the North Trench, which is a generous title for a pile of shifting sand and old guilt. This isn't where blocks are cut. This isn't where ramps are repaired. This is where they send the tired, the unlucky, and the unpopular. Welcome to the pit of regrets. The tools are simple. One wooden shovel with a split handle, a clay jar of water that smells like frog spit, and a measuring stick no one intends to use. You dig. The sand here is soft, almost affectionate. It gives way too easily. And that's when you understand why they don't build on this ground. Because this is where the bodies went. The men who fell from scaffolds. The ones who never made it through the quarry tunnel. The ones who asked the wrong questions. They're all here, beneath your feet, waiting to be rediscovered by other idiots with broken sandals and no better prospects. You're not the first to find bones, but you're the first today to say it out loud. You, your shovel hits something that feels like wood, but thinner. You bend down, brush the sand away. There it is, a femur, long, weathered, cracked like old firewood. There's still a bit of the cloth wrapping around it, dried into a stiff ribbon of rot and memory. The worker beside you leans in, looks fresh. You both laugh. It's not funny, but if you don't laugh, you might start screaming. You call for the assistant scribe, an acne-ridden youth with more ink on his hands than experience in the world. He jogs over, out of breath, like he's never actually been needed before. What is it? He asks. You hold up the bone. He gags. Ah, he says, scribbling furiously on his wax tablet. That's a 4-4Q possible foreman. Signs of labor strain. Likely died under stress. Label it for priest review. Why? Sometimes the gods care. Sometimes they want it burned. And if they don't, he shrugs. Then we dig deeper. By mid-morning, the sun is punishing. You've had taken to wrapping wet cloth around your neck and praying it doesn't evaporate before it reaches your spine. The air is still, except when the wind decides to slap you in the face with a mouthful of sand. You find a jawbone, then a rib cage, then half a skull, its brow marked with a painted glyph faded red, shaped like a reed. A mark of service or a warning? You ask no one in particular. The silence answers. And then, because nothing ever stays quiet for long, one of the workers starts singing. A low, off-key tune about a scribe and a camel and something deeply anatomically incorrect. It lifts spirits for about 4 minutes until a section of sand collapses and nearly buries him. You all stare at the hole. A foot juts from the edge. It's not his. The singing stops. Someone mutters a prayer. Another spits. You just keep digging. The trench doesn't care about prayers. It cares about weight and wind and the incompetence of the living. Afternoon brings a new horror, the priests. They arrive in pairs, robes pristine, faces painted in smug resignation. One carries incense. The other, a box of amulets shaped like scarabs, hanks, and small angry-looking crocodiles. We must test the site, says the taller one, voice nasal and bored. To ensure it is not cursed, you hold up a vertebra. This guy didn't do a great job of that. The priest frowns. Sarcasm is not protective. He waves the incense around the trench while mumbling. You try not to cough. The man beside you coughs. The priest glares at him like he farted on a statue. They leave after 15 minutes, having concluded that no obvious malevolence lingers. You stare at the bones under your feet. One has a crack down the center, like it's split trying to escape. No malevolence, huh? Sure. You take lunch late. Bread that's harder than the stone you're standing on. Beer that tastes like sadness diluted with barley. You sit on a warm rock and let the sweat dry into salt patterns on your skin. A fellow worker joins you. You know what I heard? He says. No. They say some of the tombs have false walls. That behind them? No. Are the ones who asked too many questions. You both eat in silence after that. By late afternoon, the trench is 6 feet deep and full of ghosts. Or at least, it smells like it. You're careful with every scoop. But careful doesn't mean clean. You hit a tooth. You hit a bead. You hit something that might once have been a sandal, or a tongue, or a reason not to work here. Then the wind shifts again. The sand slithers down the walls. One worker falls in. You help drag him out, and in doing so, you uncover a small folded bundle of cloth tied with reed twine, sealed with wax. Inside, bones the size of your finger. A child. You do not speak. The assistant priest makes a note. The wind carries it away. No one rewrites it. By sunset, the trench is quiet again. The bones have been marked, measured, mapped. Some will go to the priestly crypts. Others will be burned. Some no one says this, but you know will simply be forgotten again. Buried under new sand, under new laborers, under new ignorance. You sit on the edge of the trench and stare at the place you spent the last 8 hours. You're sunburnt. Your fingers ache. There's sand in places you didn't know you had. And still, the gods do not answer. You wouldn't last a day as a pyramid builder, because some stones break bones. Some bones break men. And some men break alone, where no one will ever write their name. You're not sure what you did to deserve inscription duty. Maybe you insulted someone. Maybe someone saw the way you tried to flirt with the foreman's niece. Maybe you just walked too slowly near a priest. In any case, you now stand at the base of a scaffold made of rotting wood and other people as bad decisions, staring up at the polished face of the pyramid like a goat looking at a cliff it is about to fall from. Today, you are not a laborer. You are a tool rack with legs. The scaffolding creaks as you climb. Every rung sounds like a promise you don't want fulfilled. A strong breeze blows sand into your mouth. You taste yesterday's dust and tomorrow's regrets. By the time you reach the top platform, your legs are jelly, your tunic is soaked, and your dignity is somewhere below you, probably trampled by donkeys. And then you meet him, the master carver, Harkov. He looks like a statue someone started chiseling, but gave up halfway. His back is permanently bent forward. His hands are leather stretched over bone. His eyes are milky white, but somehow still see through your excuses. He grunts when you arrive, not looking up. You hold. You pass. You shut up. You nod like a loyal dog. He doesn't notice. The glyphs today are sacred phrases pulled straight from temple scrolls, chosen by priests who probably haven't swung a hammer in their lives. They want the pharaoh's name carved in gold, divine blessings etched into limestone, spells and symbols arranged just so that the afterlife knows who paid for all this nonsense. You do not carve. Oh no. You hand chisels. You fetch beer. You pray you're invisible. The tools are ancient. The hammer's handle is wrapped in worn leather. The chisels are made of copper and spite. Harkov sharpens them against a block of quartz, like a priest preparing sacrificial blades. Each tap of the hammer sings a different note. Sometimes he listens to the sound. Sometimes he mutters something about the grain of the stone. Sometimes he stops completely and just stares, as if waiting for the gods to answer a question only he can hear. He carves the name of Ra, then a prayer for divine order, then a small line of text that you don't recognize. Do you know this one? He asks, pointing to a symbol shaped like a bird mid-fart. Osiris? No, he says, that's a vulture. Osiris is a crook and flail. You'd know that if you didn't sleep through your prayers. I never sleep. He raises the hammer, not to hit you, just enough to remind you that he could. You shut up. An hour later, disaster strikes. Not death, no. Death would be merciful. What happens is you sneeze. You don't know why. Dust, maybe. Or the incense from the priest down below. Maybe it's just the weight of shame leaving your body. Either way, the sneeze startles you. And in that sneeze, you jerk slightly. The chisel falls. It bounces off the platform. It spins, glinting in the sunlight like a copper omen. It hits the scaffolding 2 levels down and wedges itself between 2 planks like a vengeful dagger. Silence. Harkov looks at you. You drop my chisel? He turns his head very slowly. You drop my chisel? You nod. Fetch it. You climb down like a man walking into his own funeral. Retrieve the chisel. Climb back up. Every muscle aches. Your arms shake. By the time you return it, Harkov has already sharpened another. You touch it again, he says. I carve your name beside the dung beetles. You believe him. Lunch is bread. Not soft bread. Not even chewy bread. This is punishment bread, baked until it could be used to defend the city. You chew slowly, carefully. Last time you ate too fast, a tooth came out. You're still not sure if it was yours. Harkov doesn't eat. He just sits, sharpening tools. He stares at the glyphs he's already made. Occasionally, he squints at the sun like it insulted his mother. After a long pause, he speaks. These words, he says, will last longer than Pharaoh. Longer than you. Longer than this damn pyramid. You nod, unsure if that's good or bad. No one will remember me, he continues. But they'll read this. They'll read what I carved, and they'll never know who held the hammer. You want to say something comforting, but everything you think of sounds like something a dumb boy would say to an old man who has already carved more names than you've had meals. so you say nothing. Afternoon comes. It's hotter now. The stone is blinding. The hammer taps never stop. Harkov moves like a slow, furious god, shaping eternity one insult at a time. And then your hand slips. Just a little. Just enough to knock over the water jar. It tips, splashes across the newly carved raw, and seeps into the groove. Harkov freezes. He doesn't say anything, but his hand closes slowly around the hammer, and you know you're done. "I'm sorry," you say. He doesn't answer. He picks up a different chisel, starts carving again, but now every tap is harder, angrier, like he's carving not for the gods, but against them. You hold your breath for 20 minutes. Then he stops. He sighs. "Bring the beer," he says. Evening falls. The inscription glows gold in the dying light. The symbols shimmer, alive with shadow and time. Harkov leans back, his face gray with exhaustion, his hands black with dust and copper. "Tomorrow," he says. You blink. "You want me to come back?" "You're still alive." That's more than I can say for half the others. He doesn't smile, but something in his voice loosens slightly, like the final notch in a taut rope finally relaxing. You climb down in silence. Your legs shake, your back is a knot. Your hands are blistered. You wouldn't last a day as a pyramid builder, because you think writing is eternal. But here, the words are carved in sweat, and the hammer hates you just as much as the man holding it. They say no one's buried in the pyramid while it's being built. They're wrong. They just don't always mean it figuratively. Today, you wake to the sound of shouting, not the normal kind, not the early morning grumbling of men arguing over stolen water or whose lice are worse. This is sharp, panicked, vertical shouting, the kind that travels up wooden scaffolding and down limestone corridors like a thrown spear. The overseer's voice is among them, barking orders at dawn. A few words cut through the haze of your half-sleep. Collapse, trapped, rubble. And finally, volunteers. You sit up slowly. You've made mistakes in life. You stole a priest's sandals once. You once offered to correct a badly painted glyph. You even tried to flirt with the daughter of a brickmaker with too many muscles and too little sense. But this moment right here, where you raise your hand just slightly above your knee when someone shouts, "Who's able-bodied?" This will be the worst mistake of your life. The collapse happened somewhere near the base of the pyramid. A storage tunnel. A niche dug hastily to keep water jars out of the sun. A roof gave out. Maybe someone tried to stack too many baskets of plaster. Maybe a donkey kicked the wrong beam. Maybe the gods were bored and decided today was a good day to crush a dozen men under 3 tons of clay and good intentions. You're handed a shovel and a rope. The man next to you mutters a prayer. You're lowered into the hole. It's not a tomb, not yet, but give it time. The tunnel is choked with dust and moaning. Wooden beams jut out at odd angles like broken ribs. The air is thick, not just with sand, but with heat, rot, and the sharp tongue of freshly cracked limestone. That hot, toothy smell that only comes when something ancient breaks. The light is barely enough to see. Oil lamps flicker like they're afraid to shine too bright, as if illuminating the dead too clearly might anger them. You shuffle forward. One man coughs and doesn't stop. Another swears his torch is hissing, like something's breathing behind the wall. No one wants to say it, but everyone knows it. There's still someone alive under the rubble. You hear it too. A voice, thin, hoarse. It comes between the shifts of sand and the groans of the beams. Sometimes it calls for help. Sometimes it just whimpers. Sometimes it's too soft to be anything human. You dig anyway. Time vanishes underground. You measure it not in hours, but in bruises, in buckets passed back, and how long it's been since someone screamed. You shovel broken stone. Pass it behind you. Crawl forward. Stop. Wipe sweat from your eyes. Move again. Every handful of debris feels like it weighs more than it did before. Someone behind you faints. They drag him out like an old blanket. Someone else replaces him. No one asks your name. You don't ask theirs. You're all just muscles and breath in fear. Then your shovel hits cloth, and you freeze. It's a man, mostly. He's pinned under a slab of plaster the size of a cow, one leg twisted at an impossible angle. Blood-dried and dust-colored covers his face. His lips are cracked, and his eyes flicker like moth wings. "Water," he rasps. You don't have any. You call for it. Someone passes a jar. You press it to his lips, tilting gently. He drinks too fast, chokes, gasps. You wait. He blinks. "Name?" You ask. He doesn't answer. He just whispers, "Get it off." The slab. You and another man grip its edges. It's stuck. You dig around it, wedge in wood. Someone brings a lever. Someone else holds the man's shoulders so he doesn't scream himself unconscious. You lift, it moves. Just enough. Someone slides in a brick. Then another. The slab tips falls lands beside you with a crunch that rattles your teeth. The man groans. His leg doesn't move. He's alive, but he'll never walk again. They carry him out on a stretcher made from rope and desperation. You follow, crawling. You're filthy, shaking. Your mouth tastes like copper and sand. Outside, the sun hits you like a slap. You stumble. Someone hands you beer. It tastes like life and mildew. You drink it all. "You did well," says the overseer. You stare at him. He doesn't smile. "You'll rest today," he says. "Tomorrow you haul mortar, of course. That night you sleep like the dead and dream of the tunnel. Only now it collapses on you. You're trapped beneath stone and names you never learned. You scream, but your mouth is full of plaster. You open your eyes, and there's no sky. Only the underside of the pyramid pressing down, down, down. You wake choking. The sand is in your throat. You sit up. You cough. You go back to sleep, because tomorrow you haul mortar. You wouldn't last a day as a pyramid builder, because here, death isn't an event. It's part of the architecture, and sometimes the tomb gets built around you.